He watched her from across the room like a predator, studying its prey in a forest made of glass and light. Solstice Restaurant sat on the 63rd floor of Chicago's grandest glass tower, where the wealthy dined among clouds and power. The city lights below rose through the walls of glass, turning everything inside into a cold metallic shade of gold. Logan Pierce sat at the VIP table surrounded by dry laughter and the scent of aged scotch, flanked by two associates who praised him as if his power were the sun itself. He was drunk not on alcohol, but on control, and she, Ava Bennett, was just a waitress, another face in the sea of the unseen. But tonight, his gaze stopped. Not because she was beautiful, but because something about her made him want to break her. A posture too straight, an expression too calm. A cruel thought slipped through his mind, quiet and sharp as a blade. He set his glass down, his voice low and smoky. "Oliver, do you believe there are people who can't be bought?" "Mark Adler," his gray-haired associate frowned. "Of course a few maybe, but they exist." Logan smirked, his smile sharp as shattered glass. "I don't believe that. Everyone has a price. You just need to find the number." As his eyes swept the room, they stopped on Ava bending to clear a nearby table. Her hair was tied back, her black uniform perfectly pressed, her movements precise and deliberate, as if every step had been calculated. She carried herself with the quiet composure of someone who had endured too much, yet never bowed her head. In Logan's eyes, that wasn't dignity, it was just well-trained obedience. He decided to prove his theory right then and there. He raised his hand and motioned lazily, yet commandingly. "Hey, waitress." Ava froze, her heart tightening. It felt like a spotlight had just been thrown on her, but she had no idea what role she was supposed to play. She walked over, hands clasped behind her back, her gaze steady. "Yes, sir." Logan didn't invite her closer. He left her standing at the edge of the table like a servant awaiting judgment. He reached into his wallet, pulled out a platinum card, and held it up like a weapon. "I have a proposal." The air thickened. Glasses stopped clinking. "My friend believes there are people with dignity who can't be bought." "I disagree." He tapped the card against the table, his smile stretching like a cut. "I'll pay you $10,000 right now if you dance for us. Just 5 minutes." A stifled laugh came from somewhere in the room. Then silence. Ava stood still, her cheeks burning the air around her freezing solid. She could hear her own heartbeat pounding in her ears. This wasn't an invitation, it was a public execution. Logan watched her like a man holding a knife, waiting to see how the victim would tremble. He wanted to see her flustered, to hear her plead, to watch the light in her eyes break proof that he was right, that dignity had a price. But he didn't know that behind her calm eyes, a battle was raging. In that moment, Ava thought of Noah, her younger brother, lying in a white hospital room at St. Gabriel, the steady beeping of the monitors marking time, every dose of medicine paid in cash, none of it covered by insurance. $10,000 wasn't just money, it was hope. She could bow her head and disappear beneath their laughter, or she could do something else. A chill ran down her spine. She lifted her head and met Logan's eyes. His smirk faltered for the first time. For a brief second, he saw something he couldn't buy, calm laced with fire. "All right," she said softly, her voice clear enough for the whole room to hear, but not hear. A murmur rippled through the restaurant. Ava pointed toward the open space near the grand piano where the light pooled like a golden halo. "I'll dance there, and you'll pay first." Logan chuckled, convinced he'd won. He swiped the card, signed the slip, and tossed it onto the table. "There you go, $10,000. Now show us what dignity looks like when it dances." Ava said nothing. She folded the receipt carefully, tucked it into her apron pocket, and turned away, each step slow but steady. The lights reflected off her honey blonde hair as she loosened the clip and let it fall. Conversations died instantly. Only the faint notes of the piano remained, as if the music itself sensed the storm that was coming. Logan leaned back, his triumphant smile curling at one corner. He had no idea that within minutes it would be him who'd be stripped bare. Because tonight, the waitress was about to dance with a pain so raw that no one in that room would be able to bear watching. Ava stepped into the open space beside the grand piano, where light from the chandelier spilled down in a golden beam like a moon, suspended over a silent sea of people. Even the faint clinking of crystal glasses faded away until only the sound of tense breathing remained. She slipped off her black shoes and placed them neatly to the side. Her bare feet touched the cold marble floor, the chill biting yet grounding, and for the first time in years, she felt truly free. There was no music, and she didn't need any. She closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and let her breath guide her. In her mind, she was no longer in Solstice Restaurant. She was standing once again in the old studio at the Joffrey Academy, where sunlight filtered through cracked glass, and the voice of her stern but kind Russian instructor echoed, "Don't dance to the rhythm, Ava. Let the story dance through you." And tonight, her story was pain transformed into fire. She began with a small movement, her arm lifting as if pushing against an invisible weight. Her shoulders trembled, her wrists bent, her body contracted and then released. Every motion was a wound reopening, every shift a silent scream swallowed by the air. No one dared to move. A woman at a nearby table covered her mouth, tears streaming down her face. Logan Pierce sat frozen, unable to understand what he was witnessing. He only knew that each movement made his heart pound not from desire, but from fear. Fear of something so raw and real that it stripped him of everything he thought he knew about himself. Ava danced like she was fighting for her life, her spins fierce, her heels striking the floor in angry rhythm. Her body became both weapon and prayer. For a fleeting moment, everyone in that room could see the fragments of memory she was painting through every muscle and every breath. A car crash, 2 bodies in black bags. A 14-year-old boy lying still with eyes that opened and closed for the last time, a medical bill as long as a sentence. Each leap, each turn became a memory made of light. She danced until her breath turned to wind. She was no longer a waitress. She was a storm, a living gust rising inside the steel heart of the city. Mark Adler, the man who once said there were things that couldn't be bought, tilted his head and whispered, "My God, she's a genius." Logan said nothing. His chest felt tight as though an unseen hand was crushing his heart. He realized he hadn't paid $10,000 to humiliate her, but to witness the masterpiece of a human soul. Ava kept going, rising into a perfect grand jeté. But it wasn't a leap of triumph. It was the reach of someone grasping for something forever out of touch. She landed on her knees, her shoulders trembling, and slowly sank to the floor, her body curling like a fallen leaf. The entire room held its breath. A single tear fell onto the cold stone floor. Then with quiet strength she lifted her head. One vertebra at a time, her back straightened like a column rising. When her eyes opened, there was no fear left. No submission, only the gaze of someone who had seen the cruelty of the world and still chose to stand. She stood still, breathing hard, her chest rising and falling, her eyes locked on Logan. That look struck him like a slap. No words, no smile, only a silent message. "You cannot buy me." 10 seconds passed, then 20, then 30. The silence grew unbearable. And then a sound broke through applause. Mark Adler. Then a few more joined, and suddenly the entire room erupted. Thunderous clapping chairs, scraping people rising to their feet, tears falling and shouts of bravo echoing like waves. Amid the storm of applause, Only one person sat still: Logan Pierce. He couldn't move. He couldn't look anywhere but at her. In that moment, he realized he had committed a crime that no money could measure. He had tried to buy a soul. Ava bowed her head slightly, not in gratitude, but as if closing the door on the past. She picked up her shoes, wiped her tears with the back of her hand, and walked away. No one dared to stop her. No one dared to speak. The glass doors of Solstice opened, and the cold Chicago wind swept in, catching her hair and carrying it into the night. In her hand, the receipt for $10,000 remained. But to her, it wasn't payment. It was compensation for dignity lost, and she had been paid in full. Behind her, the applause continued to thunder, and Logan, bathed in the golden light of the room, sat alone staring at the space where she once stood. And for the first time in his life, he felt small. That night, Chicago lay under a black blanket shimmering with city lights. On the 54th floor of a glass tower by the river, Logan Pierce sat in his penthouse, yet it felt more like a cage made of gold, one he had built himself. On the table, his whiskey had long melted into water, and the computer screen still glowed, filled with numbers, charts, and stocks, the very things that once made him feel invincible. Now they were nothing but meaningless streaks of light. In his mind, Ava Bennett's image replayed again and again, her bare feet against the cold stone, her loose hair and those eyes filled with something he could not name. He had spent millions buying paintings, art collections, even a private orchestra for his Malibu estate, yet none of it had ever stripped him bare the way that dance did. Logan buried his face in his hands, his eyes hollow. He had once believed the world was divided into two kinds of people, those who named the price and those who were priced. But tonight, that order had been reversed. He was the one being judged, exposed by a light money could never dim. A soft knock echoed through the room. "Come in," he said. Aaron Parker, his loyal assistant of 10 years, stepped inside, a middle-aged woman with neatly tied brown hair, her face stern but kind. "Mr. Pierce, your board meeting is scheduled for 8 tomorrow morning. Cancel it." Aaron froze. "Sir?" "Everything. The morning, the afternoon, the entire week. Cancel it all." She frowned. Logan Pierce never canceled meetings. Ever. "Has something happened?" Sir Logan stayed silent for a few seconds, then spoke in a low, hoarse voice. "I need you to find someone." Aaron straightened her back, waiting. "Her name is Ava Bennett, a waitress at Solstice. She might not be working there anymore. I want to know everything. Her address, background, family, education, medical history, anything you can find." Aaron hesitated slightly. "Should this be completely confidential?" "Completely. No trace. And she must not know." When the door closed behind her, Logan sank back into his chair, a heavy fatigue flooding his body. He wasn't sure what he was doing, seeking redemption, or trying to hold on to whatever was left of his humanity. The next morning, the city woke beneath a thin veil of mist. While cars began to fill the wide roads, Logan sat in the dark, staring out at the gray sky. His coffee had gone cold, but he didn't bother replacing it. When Aaron walked in holding a thin file, her eyes carried a trace of hesitation. "Mr. Pierce, I have the information." Logan motioned for her to place it on the table. "Go ahead." Ava Bennett, 25 years old, born in Des Moines, Iowa. Both parents died in a car accident 5 years ago. She studied at the Joffrey Academy in Chicago, majoring in classical ballet. She was on a full scholarship, considered a natural prodigy. Logan listened, his hand tightening. Aaron continued. She dropped out at 19. The same accident left her younger brother Noah Bennett, 14, severely injured, resulting in a condition called systemic juvenile arthritis. She became his legal guardian. Logan swallowed hard, his eyes fixed on the words, Chronic illness requires long-term treatment. Average cost $15,000 per month. Erin spoke softly. She owes around $400,000 in medical debt. Works multiple part-time jobs, waitress, barista, warehouse cleaner. Most of her income goes directly to St. Gabriel Hospital. Silence settled between them. Logan felt his heart sink like stone. He had always viewed life as an investment game, buying, selling, profit, loss. But now every number on that report cut like a blade. He whispered, "She didn't dance for me. She danced for her brother." Erin looked at her employer. For the first time in years, his eyes held no power, only humanity. Logan stood, his voice low. "Get the car ready. I need to go to St. Gabriel." "Sir, may I ask why?" He looked out through the glass window where the faint morning sun touched the cold surface of the Michigan River. "To start fixing a mistake that money can't fix." By noon, Logan stood by the window of St. Gabriel Hospital. The sterile scent of disinfectant and the soft squeak of rubber soles filled the hallway. Through the glass, he saw a young man in a wheelchair, pale but bright-eyed Noah. Beside him was a woman, slender, her blonde hair tied back gently, folding a blanket for him. Ava. Logan stood there for a long time, unable to move. He didn't have the courage to walk in. For the first time, the man who once made the world bow now stood outside, silent, simply watching. The afternoon in Chicago fell like a gray curtain. The first drops of spring rain tapped gently against the windows of St. Gabriel Hospital. In the lobby, people moved back and forth with weary faces, the scent of disinfectant mingling with the sound of rubber wheels rolling on tile floors. Logan Pierce sat in the corner of a small cafe inside the hospital, his black coat draped over the chair, his hands clasped tightly, his gaze fixed on the hallway where Ava Bennett had just disappeared. He had stood outside Noah's room for an hour, not knocking, not daring to, only watching through the glass as she adjusted the blanket, brushed her brother's hair, and smiled softly, a tired yet steadfast smile. It was a small, quiet image, but it shattered everything inside him. The man who had once commanded hundreds of business deals, who made corporations tremble at the sound of his name, now couldn't find the right words to speak to a waitress. When Ava stepped out of the room, Logan stood. He had no plan, no rehearsed apology, only the desperate need to say something, even if it meant being rejected. "Ava." His voice broke through the quiet corridor, rough and uncertain. She turned her eyes, instantly sharp with caution. The moment she saw his face, the man who had turned her pain into a spectacle that night, her body tensed as if struck by electricity. "What are you doing here?" Her voice was low and cold, sharp as a blade. Logan took a step forward, then stopped. I came to apologize." She raised an eyebrow, a bitter smile flickering on her lips. "Apologize? In a hospital? Or are you planning to offer more money to turn your apology into a sponsorship deal?" Logan lowered his head, his voice sinking. "I deserve everything you think of me. I was wrong. I was cruel, foolish, and arrogant enough to ignore the human being standing in front of me." She crossed her arms, her eyes narrowing. "And now you think a few words will make me feel better?" He looked at her, his eyes stripped of all power, all pretense. "No. I just want you to know I haven't slept since that night. I saw you dance and I realized I destroyed something more beautiful than anything I've ever owned." Ava was silent for a moment, her breath unsteady. Part of her wanted to scream, to throw every ounce of humiliation and anger in his face. But when she looked into his eyes, eyes that held real remorse, she felt only exhaustion. "You don't understand," she said softly, her voice hoarse. "You turned my pain into entertainment. You let people film it, share it, pity me. I didn't just lose my job. I lost what little peace I had left." Logan stood frozen. Every word struck like a hammer. "I know," he whispered, "and I don't want to buy your forgiveness. I just want to help." "Help!" She let out a hollow laugh. "How with money? Are you going to write another check to wash away your guilt?" He took a deep breath, his tone weary. "Not a check. Action. I want to fix what I broke. I've already contacted the hospital. I'll cover all of Noah's medical expenses. No conditions, no publicity, not in my name. Just to give him a chance to live." Ava stared at him speechless for a moment. Then her gaze hardened. "You still don't understand, do you? You still think everything is a transaction." She cut in, her voice trembling with anger. "You can't buy redemption. Logan Pierce, you can't buy back someone's dignity no matter how much money you throw at it." He didn't argue. Every word she said was true. Ava took a deep breath, her eyes red but resolute. "You want to help Noah? I'm grateful. But you're not doing it out of kindness. You're doing it because you need to believe you're not a monster. The problem is, you are. And only you can change that." She turned away. "Don't come near me or my brother again. I don't want to see you." Her footsteps echoed down the long hallway, blending with the sound of rain against the glass. Logan stood still, shoulders heavy. No one said a word, but he knew that wasn't rejection. It was a verdict. For the first time in his life, a sorry from Logan Pierce meant nothing. And in that moment, he understood if he truly wanted to make things right, he would have to change the way he existed in the world. 3 days later, Chicago woke to a cold and unusually quiet morning. Logan Pierce sat alone in his glass-walled office on the 80th floor of Pierce Capital's headquarters, but the numbers on the screen blurred into nothing, replaced by the image of Ava walking down the hospital corridor in the rain. Every step she took had been a sentence. Every drop that fell on her shoulders, a reminder that his guilt could never be erased by signatures or bank accounts. In front of him, a cup of coffee had gone bitter and cold while Aaron Parker's voice came through the intercom, calm and precise. "Sir, we have a call with the Asian Investment Council at 9, followed by a lunch meeting with the Tokyo delegation. Cancel everything." Aaron paused. "Mr. Pierce, with all due respect, you've canceled 5 meetings in a row. The board is growing uneasy." Logan stood, the shadows under his eyes. Deep, his tone steady, but final. "I know. But I can't keep running an empire that profits from indifference. Set me another appointment. With whom, Sir Dr. Maya Patel, head of pediatric rheumatology at St. Gabriel." An hour later, Logan arrived at the hospital's administrative wing. Dr. Patel, an Indian woman in her 50s, with a calm presence and eyes that had seen too much pain to ever look away from, it entered the small meeting room. "I've heard of you, Mr. Pierce," she said cautiously, "but it's rare for a billionaire to meet someone like me in person." Logan nodded. "I'm not here as a businessman. I'm here as someone who has done wrong." Her brow furrowed slightly. "I'm not sure I follow." Logan clasped his hands, took a deep breath. "I want to fund a research and treatment program for systemic juvenile arthritis. New equipment, more staff, a support fund for families who can't afford care. I'll cover all costs." But he looked directly at her. "It cannot bear my name." Dr. Patel froze for a second. "An anonymous, non-refundable endowment? Yes. You can register it under one of Pierce Capital's sub-funds, but it must not be tied to me personally. I only want to make sure one patient receives immediate care." Noah Bennett. Dr. Patel blinked, realizing. "That boy is my patient." "But you understand, I can't share medical details. I don't need them," he interrupted gently. "Just make sure he gets the medication, the therapy, everything he needs. No more invoices, no more 'we're sorry.'" Dr. Patel fell silent. In her career, she had met many people who promised donations, but few who spoke with such sincerity. "You know this could cost several $1,000,000, don't you?" Logan gave a faint, tired smile. "I've spent 10 times that on a lifeless painting. At least this time, it will mean something." She nodded slowly. "I'll make the arrangements immediately. And thank you. Not just for that boy. Many others will have a chance because of this." When she left, Logan remained by the window, gazing out at the hospital courtyard under a gray sky. A gust of wind fluttered the small paper in his hand, a rough draft titled The Phoenix Initiative, a new foundation, not an investment fund, but a fund for rebirth. That evening in his apartment, Logan sat before a whiteboard. Dozens of papers were pinned across the wall: Art Scholarship Program Medical Fund for Artists Creative Recovery Center. The handwritten notes looked like a map of redemption. Mark Adler, his longtime partner, stepped in. "Logan, I just heard from Aaron. You're allocating $100 million to something with zero return. Are you seriously doing charity now?" Logan looked up. "It's not charity. It's an investment in what I lost my humanity." Mark sat down quiet for a moment. "You've changed." "No," Logan said, his gaze fixed on the city lights reflecting off the dark river below. "I just finally see the real world. The people I once reduced to cost figures are the ones holding it together." Mark nodded thoughtfully. "So what exactly is the Phoenix Initiative?" Logan picked up his pen and wrote slowly, deliberately, "A home for the broken and gifted, a place where they can heal, learn to rise again and be seen, not for their tragedy, but for their strength." He looked up, a weary but genuine smile crossing his face. "I owe a girl, and this is the only way I can repay her." The next morning, an internal email went out from Pierce Capital announcement launch of the Phoenix Fund with an initial budget of $100 million. Mission to support medical care and education for young artists facing hardship. No public sponsorship accepted. No one knew that behind it was the story of a sleepless man and a dance that finally woke him up. The news spread like fire across a dry field. 3 days after that rainy night at the hospital, while Logan Pierce quietly signed the final transfer papers for the fund, Ava Bennett was facing a storm she had never imagined. It began with a video. Blurry, shaky, and grainy, but powerful enough to ignite the entire internet. Someone from the Solstice restaurant had uploaded a clip to TikTok Ava's dance that night, her bare feet, her loose hair, her eyes cutting through the air like truth itself. The caption read, "Billionaire offers Waitress $10,000 to dance. You won't believe what she did next." Within 12 hours, the video had 10 million views. News outlets scrambled for headlines. "Waitress humbles billionaire. The dance of dignity. The angel of solstice." Comments flooded in. "She's a symbol. I'm crying. This is real empowerment." But amid the flood of praise, Ava felt suffocated. When she stepped out of her small apartment in Pilsen that morning, a group of reporters was already waiting. Flashlights flared, microphones crowded her face. "Ava, do you have a message for Billionaire Pierce? Did you really get paid $10,000? Are you planning to sue him for humiliation?" Ava could only pull her hoodie tighter and push through the crowd like a fugitive. By the time she made it back inside, her heart was pounding and her breath ragged. Her roommate Jenna held up her phone. "Kat, oh my God, you're viral. You have to see this." On the screen, Ava watched herself every step, every breath, but through someone else's lens. It wasn't a moment of survival anymore. It was a viral phenomenon. Millions of people were commenting, arguing, creating memes, turning her into the goddess of dignity, then the new face of feminism. Ava stared at the screen, her heart growing cold. "Jenna, turn it off. But you're famous now. Reporters are asking for interviews. Brands want to collaborate. Numb." Turn it off. Jenna froze. She had never seen Ava shake like that. Ava sank into a chair, her hands clutching her head. It felt like falling off a cliff. That video was an old wound ripped open, displayed to the world. They saw the light, but not the blood. Inside her, two fears clashed, the shame of being exposed and the helplessness of losing control, as if that dance no longer belonged to her. The next 2 days were a nightmare. Reporters camped outside. The mail overflowed with letters, flowers, gifts. Some sent money, some sent proposals of love. Dance companies reached out, television producers chased her name. Ava unplugged the Wi-Fi, turned off her phone. She entered the hospital through the back door, hiding under a baseball cap and dark glasses. Noah still didn't know anything, still held her hand every morning, and asked, "You look tired. Is something wrong?" She only smiled. "It's okay, Noah. Everything's fine." But nothing inside her was fine. That night she sat alone in the dark living room, watching the streetlights shimmer in puddles below. The rain whispered softly like the sound of fear itself. She murmured under her breath, "They don't know that dance wasn't meant for applause." The door creaked open. Jenna appeared quietly. "Ava, there's something you should see." "Jenna." I said, "Just one thing." She held out her phone. On the screen was an email from the American Ballet Theater. The first line read, "We would like to invite you to a special audition. Your video has touched even the most discerning hearts." Ava stared at the message. She should have felt joy, but instead, her chest tightened. "They're inviting me out of pity, Jenna. For the story, not the art. You don't know that." "Maybe no. I do. They don't see me. They see the scandal." She turned away, her voice cracking. "I need to disappear for a while." Late that night, the rain fell softly outside. Ava sat on her bed in front of her, lay the hospital receipt, $10,000, transferred the amount she called the compensation for dignity. She picked up a pen and wrote a few quick words on a blank page. "I don't want fame. I just want peace." Then she folded the note and placed it beside her powered-off phone. Lightning flashed beyond the window, and Ava slowly closed her eyes. In the darkness, she could almost hear her own voice echoing from that night at solstice, "You cannot buy me." And she understood this new storm did not come from Logan Pierce. It came from the world, and this time she would have to learn how to survive it on her own. On Tuesday morning, Logan Pierce arrived at his office earlier than usual. The first light of autumn streamed through the glass walls, spreading a pale golden glow across the wooden floor, but his mind was far away. He hadn't slept all night. His phone buzzed non-stop with notifications the solstice video had gone global. On the front pages, bold headlines screamed across the screen, "Billionaire Logan Pierce humiliates." Waitress. The shocking ending that stunned the world. A photo of him under the restaurant's golden light platinum card in hand, that half-smile on his face. Beside it, a shot of Ava barefoot, her gaze burning with defiance. Together, the images looked like the perfect indictment. He threw the phone down on the desk. The media had done exactly what he feared most, turned her truth, her pain, into a spectacle with ratings. The door opened. Erin Parker entered holding a thick folder, her face heavy with concern. "You need to see this." He took it, flipped it open. The pages were neatly typed, accompanied by several photos. Ava Bennett, 25. Parents: Julia and Robert Bennett, former ballet dancers deceased in a car accident in 2018. Younger brother Noah Bennett, diagnosed with severe stage systemic juvenile idiopathic arthritis. Another page contained Noah's medical records, unpaid invoices, lists of costly biologic medications, and rejection letters from insurance companies. At the bottom was a note from the private investigative team. Ava Bennett withdrew from the Joffrey Academy at 19 to care for her brother full-time. Worked multiple manual jobs. Accumulated over $400,000 in medical debt. No significant assets. Logan read slowly, every word cutting into him like a blade. He closed the folder, pressed his forehead against his fingers, his voice rough and low. She danced, not for me, but to save her brother. Erin nodded gently, her tone softer than usual. Yes. And now the world is chasing her. Reporters are crowding her apartment in Pilsen. They're turning her life into a movie script, selling her pain as a story. Logan stood buttoning his suit jacket. Contact legal. I want every copy of that video taken down immediately. That's impossible, Erin said quietly. It's gone worldwide. You can remove it in the US, but there are already thousands of re-uploads. He went silent, his eyes darkening, a storm rising quietly inside him. She was right, Erin. I didn't just humiliate her. I made the entire world complicit. Erin placed a hand on the table, her voice calm but firm. Mr. Pierce, you're making amends. Don't forget that. Logan lifted his head, his gaze alive with something both painful and resolute. It's easy to make amends to one person, but I need to do more. He gave an order. Contact the philanthropy division. Begin the Phoenix Initiative immediately. Bring in the best minds in art, medicine, and rehabilitation. I want it to become a place that truly saves people like her, people crushed between talent and poverty. Erin studied him for a long moment, then nodded. I'll start right away. That afternoon, rain began to fall over Chicago. Logan drove himself without a driver to the Pilsen district. The building where Ava lived was an old red brick block. Its walls stained, the iron railings rusted. Under the awning, a few reporters huddled with cameras. He stopped at the corner, watching from afar. The window on the 4th floor flickered with light, then went dark. He knew she was there, hiding behind thin curtains, trembling under the noise of a world that refused to let her rest. A part of him wanted to run upstairs, knock on her door, and say everything he hadn't said, but reason held him back. She didn't need more words. She needed silence and justice. He started the car, the dashboard light reflecting on his set jaw. Not with money, he murmured, but with action. 2 days later, at St. Gabriel Hospital, Dr. Maya Patel opened an envelope from the finance department. Inside was an official document confirming a new grant from an anonymous sub-fund of Pierce Capital 5-year commitment to support research and treatment for systemic juvenile idiopathic arthritis. Includes funding for medication staff expansion and a patient care fund. When she reached the final line, her heart tightened. First priority case, Noah Bennett. She looked up toward the window. Rain whispered softly against the glass. In the parking lot below, she saw Logan Pierce standing alone without an umbrella, hands in his coat pockets, staring up at the building like a man awaiting absolution. She smiled faintly. No words were needed to understand. This was no longer a donation. It was the redemption of a soul. A foggy morning. Inside the small apartment in Pilsen, Ava Bennett sat curled up on the sofa, her laptop glowing in the dim early light. She had just reconnected to the internet after nearly a week offline. Not because she wanted to, but because the hospital had messaged her to confirm payment information for Noah's medical bills. She opened her email. A new message from St. Gabriel Children's Hospital appeared. Dear Ms. Bennett, we are pleased to inform you that a full sponsorship for the treatment program of patient Noah Bennett has been approved. All costs, including medication and physical therapy, will be covered for the next 5 years. Funding is provided by an independent medical foundation. Ava stopped breathing as she read the lines. She read it again, then a third time, afraid her eyes were deceiving her. Her whole body trembled, tears spilling uncontrollably. It can't be. Jenna heard her gasp and ran out from the bedroom. Ava. What happened? Noah. His treatment is fully covered. They said it's a 5-year sponsorship. No repayment required. Who sent it? A foundation. No name listed. Ava sank into the chair, her hands covering her face. Years of fighting debt, of sleepless nights, soaked in medicine and tears, all collapsed into a silence so heavy it felt sacred. But what rose inside her wasn't just gratitude. It was suspicion. Because no one in this world did something like that out of kindness. And she knew there was only one person who could afford to do it and still hide behind anonymity. Logan Pierce. She clenched her fists, her tearful eyes flashing with both confusion and defiance. Why can't he just leave me alone? Jenna spoke softly. Maybe this time he means it. No, Jenna. He never does anything without a reason. If this is his way of cleansing his guilt, then I'm not his church. Yet even as she said it, Ava's heart trembled. Deep down, she knew Logan had changed. She had seen it in his eyes that day in the hospital hallway. No arrogance, no cold smile, only shame and genuine remorse. She didn't want to admit it, but in that moment, part of her anger had already faded, leaving only exhaustion and something that felt almost like sorrow. 2 days later, the hospital sent formal confirmation. Noah had been enrolled in a special treatment program using the most advanced biologic medication available. The doctor smiled and said, "He has a real chance at full recovery. This is a miracle, Ava." Ava smiled through her tears, gripping her brother's hand. "Do you hear that, Noah? We won't have to choose between medicine and rent anymore." Noah gave a faint smile. "Sis, who did this?" Ava stayed silent. She couldn't say his name. She didn't want to turn Logan into a savior, because if she acknowledged that she would have to forgive him, and she wasn't ready. That night in her small room, Ava opened her laptop. The screen lit up with headlines. Phoenix Fund, a $100 million initiative from Pierce Capital for artists in hardship. Billionaire Logan Pierce takes an unexpected turn investing in humanity. She stared at the word Phoenix, the firebird reborn from ashes. The name filled her with both anger and emotion. She knew this wasn't a PR stunt. Logan didn't need that kind of attention. This was his way of atonement. A message popped up from Jenna. "Have you seen the news? They say the Phoenix Initiative will also offer art scholarships for dancers who left their careers unfinished." Ava smiled faintly, a smile that was neither happy nor bitter. "He's rebuilding the stage for people like me." She stood before the mirror. Her hair hung loose. Her eyes were tired, her hands still rough from carrying trays. Yet deep within, she was still the girl who once danced across the Joffrey Academy floor, only now with broken wings. Outside, the rain shimmered in the streetlight. Ava raised her arms slowly, closed her eyes, and for the first time in years, her body remembered how to move. The gestures were clumsy, trembling, but they carried the rhythm of rebirth. She needed no audience, no applause, no money, only the truth in every breath she took. Then a daring, reckless thought flickered to life. If the world is telling my story wrong, I'll tell it myself. She pulled out her old video camera from the shelf, wiped the lens clean. Standing in the center of the room, wearing her practice clothes and a high ponytail, she whispered to the camera, "This isn't a performance. This is my story." Light poured through the window, tracing her silhouette as she began to move slowly. No music, no tragedy, just a woman finding herself again through every breath and motion. When she stopped, her heart was pounding. Her breath ragged, a small smile forming on her lips. She whispered, like a vow, "I'm not finished yet." And in that moment, Ava Bennett was no longer the waitress who was humiliated. She was a flame reborn. That night, the Pierce Capitol building was still lit. Logan sat alone in the vast conference room surrounded by the blueprints for the Phoenix Art Center. The light reflected off his face, no longer cold, only tired and resolute. Aaron walked in and placed an iPad on the table. "You should see this." Logan glanced at the screen. A new video had just been uploaded to YouTube, posted by Ava Bennett Official. The title read, "My Story, Not Theirs." On the screen, Ava stood in the middle of an empty room, the lighting dim, her eyes calm. She didn't speak about what happened at Solstice, didn't mention his name. She spoke instead about fear, about silence, about how a person can be broken by the world and still choose to rise again. Then she began to dance. No stage, no costume, no audience. Just her breathing turning, lifting her head, and smiling. Logan couldn't look away. In every movement he saw what he had destroyed and what he was trying to restore. When the screen faded to black, he whispered softly, almost like an exhale. "She's found herself again." Aaron smiled gently. "And you... what have you found?" Logan looked out through the glass wall where the city stretched like a sea of lights. "I think faith. Faith that people can change." He stood reaching for his coat. "Prepare the invitations. The Phoenix Initiative will launch officially at Lincoln Center next month. I want her there." Aaron hesitated. "And if she refuses?" Logan smiled faintly, his expression kind but sorrowful. "Then I'll still leave a seat open. This stage belongs to her whether she steps on it or not." 1 month later, the night of the Phoenix Initiative launch arrived. Hundreds from the art world gathered beneath the glittering lights that illuminated the soaring Phoenix logo. Logan spoke briefly, his voice deep and steady. "This is not a place to forget the past, but a place for those who have been broken to learn how to fly again." Among the guests, a figure entered quietly. His eyes met hers, Ava's. No dazzling gown, just a simple black dress. She gave a slight nod. In that moment, no words were needed. But in her gaze, Logan knew she had forgiven him. The premiere night ended in a long, thunderous round of applause. When the stage screen closed and the hall began to empty, only the soft lights and gentle background music remained breathing quietly through the space. Logan Pierce stood on the balcony of the second floor at Lincoln Center, looking down at the grand lobby where the last guests were leaving. There were no more murmurs, no more camera flashes, only a warm stillness, a kind of peace he hadn't felt in years. A voice came from behind him. "It's beautiful." He turned. Ava Bennett stood there. Her hair fell loosely around her shoulders, her face calm and unguarded, her eyes bright but serene. She walked closer, holding a glass of champagne, gazing at the Phoenix logo spinning slowly in the air. "You did something I never thought you could." Logan smiled softly. "Not me. You. You're the one who inspired it. I just danced. And in that dance, I saw a reason to change." They fell silent for a few seconds. Below them, the staff had begun turning off the lights. The world around them seemed to shrink, leaving only two people who had once stood on opposite sides now side by side in a world that had shifted. Logan took a deep breath, his voice low and steady. "Phoenix needs someone who truly understands what it means to rise again. I want you to take the position of artistic director, not out of debt, but because you're the only one who can give wings back to those who believe theirs are broken." Ava looked at him. In her eyes, the spark of that old fire still glowed, but it was softer now, like warm embers. She set her glass down and extended her hand. Not as a favor, but as a partner. "I accept." Logan took her hand. The handshake no longer carried the weight of power or pain, only two people who had learned the value of dignity and faith. She said quietly, her voice filled with emotion, "You know, sometimes people don't need to be saved. They just need someone to believe they can still fly." Logan replied, his gaze warm, "And you're the one who proved that." As they stepped out onto the balcony together, a breeze swept past, carrying the banner of the rising phoenix into the night air. Beneath the Chicago sky that evening, two people who had once lived in opposite worlds looked upward, and in silence, they both understood a new chapter had begun for them, and for every soul that learns how to rise again from the ashes. From the perspective of a specialist in culture and human resilience, Ava Bennett's story is not merely a journey of overcoming humiliation, but a testament to a rare truth in a world driven by calculation. True strength does not lie in how many times we fall, but in how we rise and turn our pain into light that guides the way. When dignity is preserved, even ashes can become wings.